This is the Mount of Olives. You have 3 towers on the Mount of Olives. This is the Mount Scopus Tower on Mount Scopus, which is part of the Mount of Olives range. And this is the Augusta Victoria Tower, which is the German hospital, and the tower remembering the German remembrance of the ascension of the Master. This is the Russian Orthodox Tower that remembers the Master's ascension from the Mount of Olives. So anyway, we'll save a little bit more, take a little bit more as we get into some of the pictures now. I'm going to show you map 6. On map 6, you would locate the Dead Sea and then move in until you come to Jerusalem. You'd find Jerusalem, I suppose, almost midway through the map. And I don't know how many people are working with maps, but anyway, you'll find the road that crosses over the Mount of Olives. You have Mount Scopus. I don't know if you can see that from there. Bill and Vicki, you probably remember us standing here and looking this way over Jerusalem, and then we walked, or we stood here and we looked this way, and I was trying to identify for you this road. And so you have this road running here. You have it's running along the side of this ridge. So you can see a ridge, you see another ridge. Is that correct? Yes? And so the 2 ridges and a valley in between them. And the road is staying on the side of this ridge, goes around the corner, and then it has to begin to cross the tail end of the Nahal Og. So this is the Nahal Og and its various tributaries. And so you have a little bit of rugged crossings until you start to make your ascent up the ascent of Adumim. And we'll pick up with another slide. Well, I guess I have that here. So this is one thing we did. We parked our cars. Enzim would be located right here, the modern Arab town. In fact, it goes down. It's all around there. There's a big checkpoint. A modern road comes up through here. There's a big checkpoint right about here, and we found that we could slip in past the checkpoint and get into Enzaim. We parked the cars down here, and we walked out. We because of the difficulties with the checkpoint and the traffic on that big highway, we decided on this walk to walk out and then walk back. So we walked out, remembering David's flight, and then as we walked back, we talked about the Master's, some of his entrances into the city. Often when Jesus was coming up to the city, he was heading for Bethany down here, as opposed to coming over the mount, directly over the Mount of Olives. So he would have broken off. But I always say he stuck with this road up to about this point here, and then he would have broken off this road and dropped down into this little valley here that would bring him up to En Shemesh. And then it's a very severe climb but you have these 2 springs here. It's a severe climb up to Bethany. But this is a nice little walk. I wanted to do that with the folks, but we didn't get the opportunity. I wanted actually to walk into Bethany, and the bus driver I generally work with when I'm there, I had been in contact with them, with the bus driver and our logistics man, and saying I want to walk the folks from this is called the British Forest House, is located out here. And so I said I want to walk from the British Forest House past En Shemesh up into Bethany, and they both came back and said don't do it. So so we didn't do it. But I have walked that in the past years. I'm going to advance now, and pay attention to this. It's Kalat Edom, which would be the red fortress, or the blood fortress. Dom is the Hebrew for blood, but but the Crusaders called this Castel de Rouge, and it's called the ascent of Adumim, the ascent of the red places, in the Hebrew scriptures. And as you pass through here, you can actually see red in the rock. So I want you to keep your eye on that because we shift. Okay, so now you can see here it is down here. And the next day we went down to Jericho and we began to walk the road from the other way. And we did not, we walked up. We'd parked here in Mitzpah Yericho, and so we left the road at that point. And we had hoped to go further, but both days we'd hoped to go further. But people wore out. I was a little surprised, but they had blisters, and they were some were a little crabby. But yes.
Other section there,
Mm-hmm.
when both your guide and your bus driver said don't walk it.
Yeah.
Was that for political reasons?
Yeah, yes, we would have been today. Today, all of this is a very large Arab village today,
Right.
and so yeah, it would have just been we would have been going through. I feel like we would have been okay, but on the other hand, why risk something? So if I was two of us guys or something, I'd probably do it, but we had.
If you got a group.
Yeah. And we had 3 small children, and so, okay, so we're going back then to this, and I know we were just there, but in my logic, we had to come back here so that I could talk about our departure, and we're going to see pictures all the way down to about this point. I don't have a lot of pictures. I'm not sure. Sometimes you just say, man, it just seems like all I'm doing is taking the same picture. But I thought I'd put in the pictures that I have. And I want you to think about David on this side, and Shimei comes out and he gets on this opposing ridge, and he's going to be cursing David. So he's on this ridge, cursing David, throwing his stones. Let's just finish that little bit of text. So we had in, 16:7 we have he came 16:5 he came out, he was cursing continually as he came, he threw stones, and then he had said those really quite nasty things. And so David's nephew Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, that's David's sister, said to the king, and Abishai was one of the mighty men. He says, his brother is Joab, and also Asahel is his brother. So you have those three nephews of David that are 3 of his warriors. He says to David, "Why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go over now and cut off his head." But the king said, "What have I to do with you, O sons of Zeruiah? If he curses, and if the Lord has told him curse David, then who shall say, why have you done so?" Then David said to Abishai and to all his servants, "Behold, my son who came out from me seeks my life. How much more now this Benjamite? Let him alone, let him curse, for the Lord has told him. Perhaps the Lord will look on my affliction and return good to me instead of his cursing this day." So David and his men went on the way, and Shimei went along the hillside parallel with him. And as he went, he cursed and cast stones and threw dust at him. And the king and all the people who were with him arrived weary, and he refreshed himself there. So I would say they arrived at Jericho, or Jericho and pushed on to the Jordan River, because the message will come down from Jerusalem: don't stop at the Jordan, cross the Jordan and keep going. And so it's a tremendous. I mean, to cover the 17 miles from here down to Jericho, from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and then to cross 10 miles, 5 miles out to the river, cross the river, took all night to cross the river, and then they still had 20 miles north to get into their destination. So I'm always astounded at at the ability of these people to move on foot. Yes.
I have a question. In several accounts with David, it refers to the mighty men. What is your interpretation of what are the mighty men? Were they warriors? Were they
Yeah, I think they were warriors, and
giants?
no. They weren't giants. They were warriors. They were well trained and very rigorous warriors. Yes, and
Mercenaries?
no, these I wouldn't call mercenaries. I called the Kerethites, the Pelethites, these guys mercenaries. But these mighty men, no, they were men who had joined David, and some had been with him from the very beginning. Others, and so just to help answer that question, where we really see about the mighty men is in chapter 20. I flipped to Kings. That's the problem. 2 Samuel, about chapter 22, 20, 23.
Okay.
So,
Mighty warriors.
yeah, these are the names of the mighty men whom David had. Josheb Boshebeth, a Tekomanite, chief of the captains. He was called Adino, the Ezra. Anyway, they all got great names, but here's where you get the stories. So what made them mighty? So this in verse 9, this after him was Eleazar the son of Dodo the Hohite, one of the three mighty men with David when they defied the Philistines who were gathered in battle, and the men of Israel had withdrawn. He arose and struck the Philistines until his hand was weary and clung to the sword, and the Lord brought about a great victory that day. And the people returned after him only to strip the slain. And then go on. Another one, Shammah the son of Agi the Hararite, and the Philistines were gathered into a troop. Were there with a plot of ground full of lentils, and the people fled from the Philistines. But he took his stand in the midst of the plot, defended it, and struck the Philistines, and the Lord brought about a great victory. We get another one about someone who jumped into a pit and fought a lion in the snow. So it's just men who were very daring and had performed great exploits. Every time I read that, his hand froze to the sword. I don't know if you've ever. I used to build pole barns, and man, when you'd been hammering for some time, you had to almost unwrap your fingers from the handle of that hammer.
Now, these mighty warriors, it looks to be like they are three of them. Is that what it says here?
Yeah. You're right about that.
What's kind of the three?
Yes. And I think though that we move beyond the three.
Okay.
So in verse 13, then 3 of the 30 chief men went down and came to David in the harvest time in the cave of Adullam, and so we will find that there are more, but yeah, there's I forget the Hebrew name is I think it's just Ashloshah. The three. But anyway, okay. We're back to our story, and the thing that I wanted to leave with you as we look at it. I don't think I quite finished. Yeah, I finished reading this. David refreshed himself there. The thing I want to leave with you is David had with him the men who could have easily went over and dispatched with Shimei. Shimei is a Benjamite. This is very significant because what tribe was Saul from? Benjamin, son of Rachel. This is David's from Judah, 4th son of Leah. And believe me, these conflicts continued. It's like, and so, it was a terrible thing from the northern tribes' perspective. Ephraim, Manasseh, Benjamin. So Ephraim, Manasseh, the grandsons of Rachel, Benjamin, the son of Rachel. It was a terrible thing for the kingship to pass into Judah. But we had those prophecies that said it would go into Judah. Bill, you have a...
Is this Hebrew fighting Hebrew, or?
Yes, well, yeah, this whole story is about Hebrew. Yeah, right. It would be, yeah.
One Hebrew tribe fighting another.
Yes,
Hebrew
yeah.
tribe.
Yeah. And in the story is David's own son fighting David,
Yeah.
but then Shimei is a Benjamite, a Hebrew, yes, and he is opposing David, a Hebrew. And so, yes, you had a lot of conflict between these northern Hebrew tribes and the tribe of Judah. So the thing, though, that I want to point out is that even though, we still see in David this heart that God liked, and that was no, you can't go kill that guy, because God has sent him, and if I now show the right heart, if I now humble myself and accept this from him, as opposed to retaliating, who knows, God may bring me back. And so there's a great humility that's shown in this particular story. Well, let's just move on through some of these pictures. So here we're looking back to El Zaim, spread out across here. It was really strange. We dropped down into the village and drove back here, and people are starting to stare at us. Oh, it's really a tight road coming through. People here are staring at us. We come out here. We park the cars back in here, and you kind of wonder, are these cars going to be here when we get back? There was an Arab walking in a white robe keffiyeh leading a camel, and so we talked to him. We had Paul Guerrero with us, who lives in Beit Sahur, and so we brought him for these purposes. And so he says, "Is this okay to park here?" "Oh yes, this is my land. That's my house. Why don't you come up and have lunch with me?" And we said, "No, we have to go for a walk, but thank you so much." And he says, "Everything will be okay." We came back, and the guy was gone. His camel was there, but our cars were there. So anyway, now you can see more clearly Scopus Tower, the Augusta Victoria Tower, and the tower of the Russian Church of the Ascension. This troubles me because they're dumping out here along this road, and so we walked through a lot of trash to get out onto the road. But to them it's doesn't mean anything. Once we got, this was actually, somebody actually hauled in a lot of dirt here, and they were putting in a garden here. This was all dumping. You can see the dump all along here. So we walked along, this is concrete, broken concrete blocks, all sorts of stuff that they've thrown out. So it's construction debris. And this village used to be much smaller. But so here we're on that road. And Shimei came out of Bacharim, and he's walking on this slope over here. Oops, this next thing, I was thinking I might put text in, and I never did. But so I carry things forward, so I have to, I think I'm just going to, this picture should have been dropped, so we're ready for this one. And just looking over at where Shimei might be making his way down as David's go. So I have a lot of pictures. We have other text to talk about. Oh my goodness, we're already at 10 to 8, so I guess we better just keep rolling along. And you're seeing you're keeping your bearings because you're looking back always toward the Mount of Olives, and then suddenly we flip around and we look the other way. And so now we're seeing how the road runs up. It used to be we could find a couple of this is a little bit of debris thrown here. it used to be we could find a couple of Roman milestones, or at least one Roman milestone alone. So as we're taking pictures of that, folks are standing around taking a little bit of a break. I should have taken pictures here now. You can see this is the road we're following, and Shimei would be on this bank over here. It's getting pretty wide now. But Shimei can still be heard as he's cursing. I don't know that his stones are reaching David anymore. We stopped for here's a camel picture. We camel standing on the slope above us, but we stopped for lunch. Not here, but a little bit further this way on a nice outcropping of stone. And two of the young men said, "Well, we want to go to the other side." So it was interesting to watch them drop down in, and well, we lost sight of them. Then we saw them coming up the other side. And I was surprised how small they looked, and we'd lose them in the stones, and you just have to stare. You look for some movement, yeah, and then you could track them again. And but when they got up there, they could shout over at us, and we could hear each other. So here's another nice chunk of Roman road as we rounded that corner that my arrow indicated. This beautiful piece of Roman road is still exposed. So steps cut into the bedrock. A lot of erosion though, tearing it up. But I mean, this road has been there for 2,000 years.
Yep.
And there's looking at a couple of the steps. All right, so we turned around and we began to make our way back. This would be close to, this would be the spot where we had our picnic, is on this chunk of stone here. So those guys dropped down in here and went up this way. And then we're getting closer to the cars coming out, and this was the gentleman's camel that he left to guard the cars, and he was still had his eyes on the cars. So the next day we went down to Jericho, and we always had to shuttle the cars. So we come down to Jericho, drop the group off, and then take 3 cars up, drop 2 off, 1 car back down, and down at Jericho. Whoops! I should have pointed it out here. I hope you can. So Jericho palaces, and so you have a palace of Herod. Well, here's a Hasmonean palace, and then Herod built a palace over here. So a Hasmonean palace would be a Maccabean palace. Herod built a palace on this side, and then Herod built another palace on this side. A beautiful spot. The spring of Kilt, water is being brought down by an aqueduct. On this map, as you look at this, you can, if you're looking at your own map, you'd actually be able to trace. Okay, so we have a blue line running down the wadi, but you can see there's a couple of blue lines here. So there's an aqueduct running down the north side of the wadi that would have been from Herod's time, and that aqueduct comes up this way and then runs to the palaces. And then now there's an aqueduct during the British period, an aqueduct was put in on the south side of the wadi. So I'm showing you a few of the palaces in this area, or drawings of the palaces. This would be the whole Hasmonean complex. I mean, it's really astounding. I had never walked through well, it doesn't look like this, it's all shambles. But this is the imagination of an artist. But I had never been back in there. I had crossed and I'd been over in Herod's palace. I'll show you Herod's palace in a little bit. But there was a Bedouin tent, a couple Bedouin tents, and you had to walk. But now there's a path leading you back in there, and I couldn't believe they were actually the Palestinian Authority, or perhaps somebody else, was actually putting up signs identifying things. So this would be Herod's main palace complex on the north side of the Wadi Kilt, and then this would be part of his so a swimming pool on the south side, and some garden area on this side. An amazing, it must have been some sort of a dome structure. But all of this is the Hasmonean remains. And so now you can walk through Herod's palace and follow this path and enter into the Hasmonean remains. So here would be some more of the Hasmonean structures. Hasmonean would be from 165 BC to 63 when Pompey comes into the land. And so when we celebrate Hanukkah, we're celebrating the Hasmonean victories. Hanukkah, we always call it Maccabee, but this is I don't know how, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but Judas Maccabee was the Judah the Hammer, and so the books of Maccabees in the Apocrypha tell the stories of the Hasmoneans, but they're named after Judah the Hammer. Yeah. Okay, so we aren't going to stick here. I'm trying to impress on you the fact that as you're looking at this, you're looking at a great deal of wealth and power. So this is Herod's palace here's his palace on the north side. This is his palace on the south side. A bridge across to this structure that sits on this cone-shaped hill that he made. The swimming pool, the gardens, the sunken gardens. Must have been a beautiful place. A place filled with the evidence of wealth and power and control and domination and taxation and abuse and everything that goes with that sort of thing. And so I always like to recall at this point that our master came right beside this. If we're this picture that we're looking at, he's going to be walking on the road, which is right out here, probably skirting this palace down here, but the road is still there. And so he's leaving Jericho, and in Matthew chapter 20. I don't know, I had anticipated having you all read. Mona, do you want to read a little bit there? You can read the story for us, and I really, well, we got a little slow start. Matthew 20, 20 to 28. Matthew 20, 20 to 28. Mona, go ahead and read that for us.
Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee came up to him with her sons, and kneeling before him, she asked him for something. And he said to her, "What do you want?" She said to him, "Say that these 2 sons of mine are to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your kingdom." Jesus answered, "You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I am to drink?" They said to him, "We are able." He said to them, "You will drink my cup, but to sit at my right hand and at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father." And when the 10 heard it, they were indignant at the 2 brothers. But Jesus called them to him and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. It shall not be so among you, but whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be your slave, even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many."
I mean, this is and the very next verse says, as they were going out from Jericho. So that's why I say they're someplace right close to these palaces. And here's our master, the wisdom that created the world. I mean, if we identify God's Messiah with the wisdom that of Proverbs that is involved as God's agent in creating the world, and everything belongs to Him. He's walking by here, and these guys are struggling. These 10 are saying, "Oh, wait, what are you doing?" Asking to sit at the right hand or the left hand, and Jesus just shows absolute humility, King of all. And yet, he isn't going to, he isn't going to allow these guys to fight for turf, because he himself has given up absolutely everything. And so, that's what he says. The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. So it's a lesson in abandoning our kingdoms and following the Master. Here's some of the stone on the walkway up to that cone-shaped hill, and this another palace structure. I think this one probably is his palace, Herod's palace on the north. It's kind of there are no labels on these reconstructions, but here we were making our way out. You can see that same stone pattern. And so this is an Italian type of building technique, which is interesting because what are the Italians doing building here? Well, Herod had. This tells you in the ancient world, you had some great singers. You wanted to give a gift to a king. You'd send these singing folk to the king, and here's a gift you can have. They'll let them entertain you, and so got architects. Send some architects to Herod and say, here, let these architects build you something. So Herod allowed them to build down here, and so they used the rubble stone, the local very coarse stone, and they would set that in cement. So you have cement on the outside or in the middle, these stones set against it, and then this is going to be plastered over so that it looks like limestone. Here's an illustration. This is a column laying on its side. You can see that this is just kind of a piece of a pie. And so all of these are pieces of a pie forming a round column shape. You can see they're held together by the cement. And then there was plaster placed over top of them. So here's another column that I see the plaster on. And then again, here's one where we can see that after you put the plaster on some of them you fluted them. So it looked like you were dealing with fluted columns, but they're really just rubble stone. In a way, that's kind of the way Herod was, dressed up, but a lot of rubble inside. This is interpreted as the Roman bath in that main palace of his. And so we're just flipping through these pictures because then we did walk back and looked at that Hasmonean remains, and this they identified as a Hasmonean synagogue. So I took a picture of the it's a public building adjacent to the main conduit consisted of a pillared hall surrounded by benches. A water installation was built into the northern wall, as well as a two-story niche for storing scrolls. A triclinium surrounded the couches, and a kitchen with an oven were found on the west, and in the south was a ritual bath, a mikveh. This may be the oldest synagogue in the country. Very interesting to be found in the outskirts of this this Palestinian-dominated and controlled zone. I spent some time trying to, read the sign, look and see, read the sign. But the only thing I could really make out for sure was the ritual bath. You can see the steps going down into this ritual bath. Here's water channel coming in. That would be the main conduit, I think, that they were talking about. Anyway, those pictures were taken at the end of the day when we came back down to recover that car that we had left. But here we are. We're at about the place where the palaces are behind us. And this would be the place where I think our next text takes place. So if you're still open in Matthew 20, do you want to pass the microphone back to Vicki? And Vicki, you could read for us the story about the blind men. So
Starting
with 29, yep, and then just the end of the chapter.
As they were leaving Jericho, a large crowd followed him, and 2 blind men sitting by the road, hearing that Jesus was passing by, cried out, "Lord, have mercy on us, Son of David." The crowd sternly told them to be quiet, but they cried out all the more, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us." And Jesus stopped and called out to them and said, "What do you want me to do for you?" They said, "Lord, we want our eyes to be opened." Moved with compassion, Jesus touched their eyes, and immediately they regained their sight and followed him.
This isn't this is quite the statement coming from these 2 blind men. They've only heard the stories of this guy, and they based on those stories, they identify him as the promised Messiah. Amen. Son of David is the promised Messiah. And so Messiah, the promised one, have mercy on us. And that's what we cry out too. I mean, we're in Matthew, blind men always see more than the seeing folk. It's kind of interesting. And they see spiritually. Now, Matthew has 2 of them, and Mark, I like Mark's because he names him blind Bartimaeus. But you say, okay, so were there 2 or were there 1? Well, if you have 1 blind man sitting on the road begging, you probably have 2 sitting on the road begging, and one happens to become part of the believing community, and people know that he was, Bartimaeus, the son of honor is what Bartimaeus would mean. So, but blind Bartimaeus, we'll remember who he was. And so I took this picture thinking this is about the place where the master would have encountered. Here's the crowd telling them to be quiet. So now we're beginning our ascent. It's a very steep ascent at first. You're looking out over the Jericho oasis, the Wadi Kilt running down here. The Hasmonean palaces are over here. And here's the road. I'm not sure why Vernon Beachy. This is Vernon Beachy, my friend from Sugar Creek. These are his disciples. I'm not sure why he turned around. It might be because I had told people, let's turn around and walk back down, and let's try to talk as we're making this ascent. I want, think about the master. He's not being silent. He's teaching as he's going, and the physical condition. I mean, he was a tremendous. I don't know if you want to think that or not, but I have trouble teaching when I'm walking. I'd like to breathe. As we're going up, you look up and you see this. This is called Kipros. This is Herod's fortress, named after his mother, sitting on a hill up above his palaces. This is the artist's attempt to draw it. And once we had gotten a little further, we walked by it, and I turned around and snapped another picture of Kipros. I don't know now. I don't think I have Kipros in that picture. I think that's just a chunk of hard limestone or of chert resting on top of a chalk hill. Sorry about that. So we're continuing up, and there's a story here. This somebody got on a donkey, which was always a mistake. Steve, I know you like the donkey rides, and Rachel got a good donkey ride, and Steve. Yeah, it better not be. Better. No, I don't think. Oh yeah, Muhammad is the guy that you and Steve saw him again on another trip. So you saw him in 2000, what was it, 2008? And then you saw him we met him again on 2012.
Well, he wanted to, Rachel's leg was, or her ankle was
Yeah.
cast, and so he gave her a ride down, and because she was pretty. And then he got the gospel because he was taking my daughter down on a donkey. So
Yeah.
by the bottom of the hill, he had the way of the master put to him. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you should have been along on this one. It was kind of a mix-up. They had given him, you think you contract with these guys, you pay them and you get on the donkey and then you bail off and somebody else bailed on, and that was the problem. When I'm waiting up at the top for him, he comes up and he says, Madrik, money, need more money, and it was, oh man, we had a rough time because the guys felt they'd contracted, but no, if you change riders, contract is broken. So you try to give, well, never mind. So anyway, so right after that, of course, we run into where all of the congestion, if you can imagine it, all of the congestion is with buses and tourists getting off to look at St. George's Monastery. So we just pushed right on through that group, and then we found a little shade tree and 3 donkeys that we could have ridden for free. Yeah, there's actually a water installation, an Israeli water installation up here, and water is running down into this, and that supports the life of this tree, and these donkeys have come up for a little drink of water. But I couldn't resist putting in a closer shot of them too. I should have went down and moved the green bottle, but you might as well see what it is. So then we did go up to take a look at St. George's Monastery. You're looking at a cross which represents their territory, and looking down at the monastery hanging on the cliff. Here I stop for a moment and here, this is the aqueduct. You have the aqueduct coming here, and at this point it falls, it drops down this slope and across and comes along this down below us here. So the aqueduct is coming this way. So you can hear water falling. And so look at this. How much vegetation do you see out here?
None.
0. And here's water, and you have water spilling out of the aqueduct, water spilling out, a tree growing where the water turns and spills out, and just a spray of vegetation where that, I mean, it's amazing, as soon as there's water on there. And so, this is, and if we went back here and we look down in, you can see the aqueduct is running right down along here, and so they have trees along, the monks have trees along the aqueduct. And so of course this is a place to talk about Psalm 1, and what is the righteous man like? He's like a tree planted by streams of flowing water, and his leaf does not wither, but he bears fruit in its season, and everything that he does, in all that he does, he is successful. So or God makes him successful, where it's uncertain what that really is there. But I thought I would read Psalm 1, but I think because of time's sake we probably won't. I do like this Jeremiah text as we look at a picture like that, Jeremiah 17. And so Bill, do you want to read 17 and listen to the contrast between the cursed man and the blessed man. So 17:5 through 8.
Thus says the Lord, cursed is the man who thirsts in man and makes flesh his strength, and whose heart departs from the Lord. For he will be like a bush in the desert, and will not see when good comes, but will inhabit the parched places in the wilderness, in the salt land, and not inhabit it. Blessed is the man who thirsts in the Lord, and whose hope is the Lord. For he shall be as a tree planted by the waters, and that spreads out its roots by the river, and shall never fear when the heat comes. But its leaves shall be green, and it shall not be anxious in the year of drought, neither shall cease from yielding fruit. The heart
Yeah, so, oh, well, you can read that too. That's certainly what we are.
The heart is more deceitful than all things, and desperately wicked. Who can understand it?
Now, your text really has thirst in those two situations. Cursed is the man who thirsts in mankind, and okay, because
It says, I think, no, it says, cursed is the man who trusts.
who trusts. Okay, I was going to say I have to go check. No, that's fine. We were talking water and thirst. Seemed like it would work. And,
That's what I said.
yeah, and I thought, wow, I better go check the Hebrew and see if it is thirst or trust. Trust. Okay. Yeah. All right. So there's so many more pictures we could do here, but we aren't going to do it because of time's sake. But I do want you to think about this is the place where. Oops. I moved. I don't know why that didn't move. Let's see. We're still stuck there. For some reason, we're stuck there. Oh, okay, there we go. All right. So now I'm back on the wrong one. Okay. Now that's interesting. I'm seeing something else, and we'll move ahead. Okay, we'll work with that one. Yeah, look at that. Wow, that's quite the picture. So this. Here's an old bridge across here. You're still seeing some of the aqueduct down there. But put yourself as the master out here. He goes out here and he spends 40 days out here in this. So we could turn to Matthew chapter 4 and read the temptation, but we will not. I want you to look at this slope. And so even this slope, they often use the illustration of they say these are goat paths or sheep paths. Well, the goats and the sheep do walk on them. I was told by a geologist that this chalk soil, as it settles under rain, it forms these, but certainly they're accented by the goats and the sheep. And so I kind of had an experience out here with this group. Usually I would start at the other end and walk to St. George's. Here I was walking from St. George's to the lookout at the other end. And I knew that I should have known I had to stay high. But I would get on one of these paths, and the path would just be leading me down. I said, uh-oh, we're coming to a Bedouin camp. So we got to get back out of here. So we turn and we climb up. Got on another path, and it's so easy walking as it's dropping, and
You don't notice it dropping.
yeah, and so all of a sudden I think we're heading to another Bedouin camp. So we turned and back up, got on another path, and this time I said, uh-oh, we're heading towards the Kilt Spring. So this time I said, we're going all the way to the top, and it was a beastly climb to get back out to the top. But yeah, so just some views down there. This would be the Spring of Kilt down in with some trees. A lot of pictures, all the same, but it's just remarkable territory. This is kind of the place, a little closer up view of the Spring of Kilt. Now we have to get to the top, and we did have part of the group had split out. So this is some of our folk walking. So this would be the road that was used they wouldn't be walking out here in this rugged area where we are now. But of course, this rugged area reminds us of another story, doesn't it? So that's the Good Samaritan. So Luke 10:25 through 37 is the story of the Good Samaritan. And you're looking for places where criminals could hide, or refugees or fugitives could hide. You see there are plenty of hiding places, and there's also the spring of Kilt. There's 3 springs in this canyon as you make your way up into towards the hills. And so that story talks about the man on the road from Jerusalem to Jericho. And you've seen the top part of the road now. You've seen the bottom part of the road. You can imagine what this road was like. We're going to wrap this up, and just another piece of narrow path. That kind of gives you pause for a moment when you get out there, and you think, "Whoa, that's kind of a long ways down." Oh, somehow it seems like I'm going backwards.
Is that Jericho area? That was like the Sodom.
No, that's along the Wadi Kilt. Yep.
Because I was concerned when we were way at the top, just on the edge.
Yeah.
You know, like over the knoll at the top.
There,
On
there
the side and be able to live.
yeah. There was a place where I had a. I'm not usually not bothered, but I had a moment of panic because, of course, I have some people behind me. That's why those others took the road. I said, this path is going to get worse and worse. So you guys want to split it? We did a little bit of canyon walk, and then we came to the road. And I said, those who want to take the road, go ahead. Those who want an adventure, come with me. And we're on this little path, and all of a sudden it was washed out, and it was not for a whole lot, but it's enough that you're going to say, boy, are my my Chaco hiking shoes really going to hang on to this edge as I make it over to the path?
Thanks for a more comfortable ride home on the plane when there's people missing. Golly,
That's it.
Are we gonna let him go over there anymore? Seriously, that's not right.
So anyway, here's here I tried to represent what we did. So you're looking down at St. George's, and so then we left. We dropped down and came back up, and some of the folks jumped back on the road, and others of us went down and had to head back up. And we actually went back down again and had to come back up. I couldn't get 3 drops in this little stretch. Then we came to the viewing stand that's here. It's a beautiful view out over the Kilt from there. But here's the road from the day before. So there's a section in there that I somehow have to get on again. I talked about the 3 springs. Here's the Farah Spring in the Farah Canyon, which flows into the Kilt Canyon. Here's the Farwar Spring, and here's the Kilt Spring. So, and the Suwanit comes in. Suwanit is another canyon system coming from Bethel and I down here, joins with the Farah to form the Kilt. Okay, well, we're done. And yes.
How much water do those springs generate? Quite a lot.
The Kilt Spring is pouring water all the time. That aqueduct is always carrying water. The Farah Spring, this one here, there's a fun bus drive. Well, a fun drive with anything. You leave this main road, and you're going to cross this. You're going to be making your way down and crossing like this and up. It's really a rugged road, but we did that, and to get out to a walk we were doing over here, and they have this spring locked off now. And it says contaminated, and I don't doubt it. I mean, I probably shouldn't mention this, but This is the Suwanite. This is the pass. We walked that Suwanite Canyon, and we came up on top. Well, I wonder if it's there are settlements now sitting on big settlement here, Giva Benjamin, big settlement a settlement being built here, a settlement being and a new one being built here, and there's a pipe, a large pipe just dumping sewage right down in here. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I wanted to write, I didn't know who to write, but I wanted to write somebody and say, you got to stop that. But that's
Palestinian?
no, that's Israelis.
Yeah.
Wow, that's surprising.
Yeah, I was surprised by it too. But this is this is kind of the settler mentality. Is we're going to take this land, and if we have to, I mean, and it's because it's really, I don't know, maybe it isn't illegal anymore, but new settlements are supposed to be illegal. You just move your caravans out, you park them, and we don't have time, we don't have time to put in a sewage system, so we just run a pipe right down into the Kilt Canyon.
Just knowing how precious water is.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, we'll close, and thank you for, this is probably, this and this wilderness is my joy. I don't know, there's something about it. It's the harshness of it, the weakness that you feel, and for some reason it's just like this is where you encounter God. Father, we thank you for this opportunity to talk about this well-known Jericho to Jerusalem road and so many events that took place along it. The number of times our Master must have walked up it, the stories he would have told. Father, thank you for the opportunity that we have to still see it today, to put these texts on the land. And Father, we come to you in the name of the Holy One who faced the severest of temptations in this wilderness and did not yield.